Hey everybody, welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast. Today we're talking about how brands diversify, and this is a part 1 of a 3 series starting with brand extensions. But we have a special guest. Matt Marsh is on the show today.
How you doing?
There we go. Now we can all feel insecure with the voice on the show compared to ours.
I kind of got cold chills.
Hey, it's a blessing.
Yeah. So, all right, music, whatever. I'll edit that out. All right, welcome to the NerdBrand Podcast. Today, it's a part 1, brand extensions on how brands diversify. So with us is Matt Marsh, who is NerdBrand's marketing associate and account manager. So if you are out there and you know NerdBrand and you've been hearing from us, getting emails, getting phone calls, this is the guy.
That's me.
Yeah. So you're like, hey, who's this guy? We know Jason. We've seen and heard of John. We've seen Mitch. Who's the Matt? What's this Matt guy? This is the Matt guy. So anyway, we're all jumping in. John's not with us today, but he may jump in here a little bit later. So, but let's kind of get started with what brand extensions are. Mitch, do you want to tell our audience what a brand extension is?
Don't they weave those into your hair to make it look longer and fuller?
Okay, Mitch, you're not on the podcast anymore after this one.
A brand extension is, in a general sense, it's something that you do you make it? Do you create it? Do you obtain it and put it out for public consumption? But it's something different than the usual product or service that you generally put out. There may be some attachment to it from your main product or service. It may be a thing that highlights an aspect of your brand that your ordinary service or product doesn't, or it might be something kind of off the wall that kind of draws awareness and creates a little bit of a PR noise to get people to kind of raise up and pay attention to you. That's kind of what a brand extension is in my mind, in a very general sense.
I think that's a great example. I mean, as we go through the series here on how brands diversify, I mean, you always have like the main thing you do, but then you want to have all something else that, I don't know of many examples where a brand has diversified and they've done an extension and the extension becomes the brand and overtakes the main brand. But if any kind come to mind as we keep chatting here about this, and then we'll, work that in. For right now, Tesla tequila.
How often do you have to charge it?
Yeah, good.
I mean, is it a self-pouring bottle that you plug it into the wall and I don't know?
It just drips all the time.
Yeah. John brought this to our attention. I thought this was just really interesting because, we see Elon Musk like building starships. If you've not heard of that, you should really go check that out. It's unbelievable. I think that they know something we don't, frankly. But, you've got them building starships and SpaceX. You've got him, his boring company, literally. That's good branding right there. The Boring Company is in operation now in, I don't know if it's Texas or if it's someplace. I've lost track of where it's at maybe. But anyway, so that's kind of kicking off and he's kind of doing that. So, yeah, you've got like all of a sudden here's tequila. It's just out of left field. I mean, everybody's getting into liquor, I guess.
That does seem like the trend nowadays.
Well, it kind of kicked off with bourbon, I think. I mean, when bourbon became hot, everybody was latching onto the bourbon bandwagon. Bourbon flavored this and bourbon extensions of that. And now I think it's kind of expanding into, I think, to some degree, other liquors and other products and stuff. But the one thing I will say about the Tesla tequila, if you get a chance to go to a link and see a picture of it, it's a very interesting bottle. I don't want to give too much away, but when I first saw it, and maybe it's because I'm a product of the generation I came up in, but it looks kind of like an aftershave bottle.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, we'll include links and pictures of this on the podcast episode as it's released. It's sold out though, like not very long after it went up. I mean, this thing's like $250 a bottle, so it's not something, in my opinion, cheap at all.
Definitely a premium top shelf brand.
Yeah, 3 days it was gone.
Or at least they pretend it is.
Right. Perception is reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Tesla's becoming the new Apple as far as like, everybody wants a piece of that just to have that as a status as much as Apple is with the iPhone and
well,
its products.
It's interesting you brought that up because you said in the beginning about, brand extensions that overtake the brand. I mean, because when Apple first started, it was a kind of a simple, cute little user-friendly personal computer, the Macintosh.
Mm-hmm.
That was Apple. That was pretty much the extent. But if they are probably, and I'd like to think it was an intention from the very beginning, but Apple, even then, to some degree, was beginning to create that mystique of being something more than just a computer. It's an attitude and an approach to any kind of personal computing, whether it's a handheld device or a desktop. It's a whole. That all centered around user experience and having a unique flavor of personal experience that runs across all of their devices. So, I guess to some degree, Apple is a brand built on brand extensions. Would that be a stretch?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't honestly know. I mean, it's really hard to kind of look at when a company's that big. I mean, it would kind of like, in keeping with the theme of the podcast, it's like kind of looking at Marvel Studios. Is Ant-Man a brand extension as much as Captain America is when it comes to anything like a toy line or whatever? That if you want to look at it like that, or if you want to look at DC, if you look at DC, you've got animation, you've got cinematic, you've got comics, and then you've got action. Well, you did have action figures. They just went through another massive layoff in DC. DC's getting a little scary, by the way. I'm not sure what's going on over there. I don't know if y'all saw that news or not.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they've had another massive round of layoffs. So I'm having some audio issues again. Keep hearing a little bit of feedback here and there, but all right, we'll keep going. So yeah, they've been having some layoffs. But I don't know. It's like, I know a lot of people buy. I guess if you were to look at the product that mostly is purchased, then it would be the iPhone.
Right.
But I don't see a lot of people rushing to get MacBooks. I know recently they released the new MacBook Air, and there's some claims about it that the PC world's like, no, you're full of it. That's not true. It's not faster than most of the PCs on the market. Like that I saw come up. I'm kind of a Reddit. I don't adhere to when I say this, I don't want people thinking like negativity about it, but I do go to Reddit and read Reddit every now and then, certain things, and that's what's been one of the things that has come up in technology is that. So, but yeah, I don't know. Matt, do you think that would you call the Apple Watch and all that a extension or just a product? I just think it's a product line for me.
Well, I think it gets a little bit into semantics because there is such thing as line extension, which is a form of brand extension, but it's not exactly creating some new product, like totally new. It still has that flair of the products that are already on the market. So I think it depends on how you would define brand extension. It could be both.
Yeah, a line extension, I guess by that you mean like I have an iPhone X, but I also have iPhone SE, I have iPhone XR, kind of like that.
Right. Or kind of like how, some brands, like you were talking about Tesla, they make cars, they make rocket ships, and they make tequila versus like, those are obvious brand extensions. But with Apple, you've got a phone, a computer, a watch, and then like service providing with music and things like that. So they're all different from one another, but they're also all part of the same genre of products,
Yeah. Yeah. See, he's the smart one on the show. And he has the voice to sound like it. So everybody take note.
It's not enough to be authoritative. You have to speak and have a tone that's authoritative.
Yes, that's the trick. You can make people believe anything you say if you have confidence in how you say it and sound like
And
you
you're a
know it.
baritone.
And then and you're a baritone. That helps too.
There you go.
Yeah. So all the ladies, did y'all like? I don't know if we should even mention this on the show, but I'm gonna anyways because it's our show. But do you remember a while back the lady that claimed about it was a pharmaceutical company, I believe, and she was the head of it, and she was like claiming that this drug could do this or that, and everybody would invest in it, and then she got busted for fraud. It was actually not true at all, and there was some thievery and hunky-doriness going on, and I can't remember her name, but when they did a story on it, and I don't remember if it was Dateline or 2020, they were like, in investment meetings, she would lower her voice and talk lower like this instead of her normal tone of voice as a woman, because the trick was that they would listen to her more as an authority because she was a woman, which I was like, wow, sexism isn't dead. Okay.
What?
But that was the trick. That was the thing. The lower the voice, apparently, the more authority.
I mean, I've heard of it before. I've never really tried to leverage it myself, but that kind of makes me start trying to think of how I can.
Well, it's for some it just comes naturally.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of techniques. I was told a while back too. It's like facial hair. Like I'm going to keep my goatee. I don't care. But if you're clean shaven, people trust you more. It's kind of like it's like a psychological thing. It's not like a culture. Like in today's culture, nobody cares. You got people with different color hair and everything. But if you really get down to it, if you have pink hair, it's harder to get a job.
Right.
Frankly, I mean, it just is because employers are still very traditional in the roles that they're looking for and the expectations of the person and how they look. It's just the way it is. It's just been ingrained for the last 100 years. You can't just like change on a dime that perception. But yeah, and also if you wear blue, it's kind of like when you go to court, they tell you to wear blue because you look innocent, you look trustworthy, because blue invokes practicing color theory here, invokes that from people, and it gets that emotional response. So if you're sitting in front of a juror, they're going to go, oh, he's wearing blue, he must be innocent. Like, I don't know if that still works or not. It'd be interesting to see somebody do a case study on that.
Yeah. I have some friends who do some online teaching. And for the company they work for, they teach children in China, and they're required to wear a blue shirt for, I would assume, the similar reason, a sort of subconscious, response of the students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of like school uniforms. I think school uniforms are like that. There's blue and another color and khaki pants for both boys and girls, and so that way you have, because when I went to school, what you wore mattered. Like fashion was a big deal in high school. So, today they don't get a shot at that. I'm sure they find other ways to do that. But I remember if you had Air Jordans, you were the bomb. If you had like certain kind of pants or certain kind of a shirt or hat or whatever, you could wear that in the halls of the school. Girls would wear all kinds of crazy stuff that you wouldn't want your daughter to wear that's 15, 16, 17 years old. But they would when I went to school in the 90s, in the mid 90s. And, it's like they kind of like put that in place to kind of sort of flatten that out, make it as bland. I have no idea how this relates to our topic, so we'll swing back around here. Hey, you know what? Some podcasts like I watched a Joe Rogan podcast. Yes, we're still going down a rabbit hole. I watched a Joe Rogan podcast, and I do like watching that. I think it's interesting. But, they don't really have like a topic or format anyway. They just kind of talk. I watched them like kind of go down the road of a rabbit trail of just, they started talking about UFC fighting and all that and everything. And then they started talking about something else for another 20 minutes. And it was just like, but you were still fascinated. We hope you're still listening out there, people. So anyways, the next one that we looked at was KFC. This one's got a lot of brand extensions, and they are weird.
They are.
I mean, this is not. I know that the first one we're going to talk about is it is fingernail polish. Yeah, KFC has fingernail polish. Brings a whole new meaning to finger licking goods.
Edible fingernail polish.
Okay, thank you for adding that because I did not know that. I just thought it was like creative colors.
No, because it goes back to what you were saying.
Wow.
About what you were saying about finger licking good.
Got it. Okay, maybe not. I don't think this is going to hit the American market. This is.
I think they did it. They did it for the Asian for their Asian market.
Yeah, yeah, it's in Hong Kong. We'll have a video. There's actually a YouTube video that is a commercial that they made for this, and we'll provide again for our listeners. We'll do a blog post of this, provide a link. We'll have the video posted on the NerdBrand website at nerdbrandagency.com, and you can go to that/podcast, and you'll be able to find this episode next week posted there with all these assets on it. But you can listen to this as of every Friday at 4 o'clock. So there, I did the plug.
Got it in early.
I did my plug. I forgot to plug the podcast when I started, so I don't do anything in order. We're like 10, 15 minutes in. I just add around to my first plug.
Flying by the seat of our pants.
That's kind of how it goes on a Friday, man. When you say TGIF, you got to work in there something that's kind of like TGIF IDC, which is I don't care. I did put out on LinkedIn that if anybody had any ideas to like kind of pop into there and like add some comments if they had any like other brands that we could talk about as we kind of keep going through this. I don't think I got any responses. I'm actually getting ready to check Facebook now, see if anybody responded to what I posted, but I don't get on Facebook. I don't do a lot of posting on Facebook. Let's put it that way. Had a couple shares, nobody commented, so. None of you out there get your name listed. We do sponsorships on our show, by the way, for everybody listening out there. You can go to nerdbrandagency.com/sponsor, and then you can actually like submit your brand name, who you are. We'll talk about it, and we'll do like a mid-roll ad, kind of like we're doing now for ourselves, and kind of plug it, talk about it, can be a part of the show. That's about it. It's very informal. Doesn't cost you anything. It's free. So there you go. That's done. Moving on. Fingernail polish that you can eat. Gross.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, and KFC is one of those brands, just because of the nature of the brand. It's so ingrained in our culture. I mean, it's been a fixture of American culture for almost 60 years, I guess. Matter of fact, I was watching an old James Bond movie. It was Goldfinger. And I don't know how much the audience is familiar with, James Bond lore, but James Bond has an American counterpart named Felix Leiter who works for the CIA. Well, there's a scene where Felix's partner is parked in a car in a Kentucky Fried Chicken parking lot, and this is about I'm guessing it was like 65 or 66 maybe that this movie was made, and it was already part of American culture because I don't know if you know the plot of Goldfinger. But part of it takes place at Fort Knox in Kentucky. So it was a perfect tie-in for Kentucky being thematic to the movie. But that's just a lesson of how ingrained it is with our culture. But I digress. The whole idea of a brand.
Did you just say bed rest?
No, I digress.
Oh.
Maybe I should be on bed rest. Anyway.
We all should.
My point is, when it's a brand that's that ingrained in our culture, that's so familiar, or you've done so many different iterations of advertising and marketing on your brand, you have the flexibility to really stretch and do some pretty off-the-wall things. I think it's a luxury that only comes with being such a behemoth brand that people kind of begin to look at you and say, well, what are they going to do next? Well, we're going to show you what we're going to do next. And it's going to be really strange, but it still works. Fingernail polish that's edible ties into the whole finger looking good message. Is it weird? Yeah. Was it done in America? No. I would like to see the data as far as what led them to go in that direction in the Asian market.
Yeah. And another thing too, is this, I don't think they're trying to create some new line of fingernail polish and the goal is to make a bunch of sales there.
No, exactly.
Quote here, it says this campaign is designed to be intriguing and fun to increase excitement around the KFC brand in Hong Kong. And I think that's exactly what it's going to do. Because I mean, even now we're sitting here talking about KFC on a podcast. Now all of a sudden KFC is back in conversation. It's more exciting again. What in the world? Nail polish? Now I'm going
and think about it. That was done for the Asian market, and we're talking about here in the United States.
Yeah, exactly. I actually spent a few weeks in China a few years ago, and KFC is actually a big deal over there. It's not like just another fast food restaurant. It's like if we want to get American food, we go to KFC, and so it's pretty cool.
Huh.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Another thing that Matt can make us feel bad about because
He's cultured.
as far west as I've been is Orange.
Right, he's
Yeah,
cultured.
as far west he's cultured. Yeah, because the extent of me going westward has been Owensboro. So,
Orangeboro.
Well, China's eastbound, depending on how you look at it. Maybe.
yeah, that's true.
Flat
You know,
Earth.
getting on a plane. Yeah. Yeah. Now, well, east wise, I think the farthest east I've gone is like Cincinnati.
It raised a good
So,
question.
you know.
How far east do you go before you've gone west?
Ask
Thank you,
KFC.
Mitch, for that. Yeah. Ask KFC. Anyways, John's on the podcast
Welcome.
now. He's been
Welcome
a little
to me.
bit delayed, but yes, welcome
Glad
to
to
the
have
podcast, John. We're glad to have you. So we talked a little bit, as you may have obviously missed. We talked a little bit about the Tesla tequila already and how Mitch thinks that looks like aftershave.
Just the shape of the bottle. And probably the color of the
yeah.
contents has something to do with it too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I looked at it and I was like, cologne. Once you said that, I was like, yep. But then we got to the fingernail polish. But the next up thing, now this one I get, and this is fire logs for KFC. So it just gets weirder. That's all this does. Just prep yourself if you're listening. How weird is this going to get? Don't worry. We're about halfway. We're about 2.5 stars in. Wait until we get to 5 stars on the KFC. What's next on this? Fire logs. Yeah. So the idea is you burn a log in the fireplace and your whole house smells like KFC. I know that some real estate agents will be like, and the preppers, they'll be like, hey, you should bake some chocolate chip cookies. That way, when you show the house off, it has that warm, inviting smell. Same with apple pie. I don't know if you would want to actually do this. It just seems a little strange.
You need to
Well,
confirm the people like KFC chicken first.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if they're vegan? Oh my God. Could you imagine that?
I mean, I wonder how accurate.
That's okay.
I wonder how accurate the smell is. Does it actually smell like KFC, or does it smell like some sort of weird burning log that's trying to smell like chicken?
I mean, I wouldn't think it would be that difficult to replicate. Of course, I've never seen the 7 herbs and spices either. So
Yeah.
or however many it is.
It says 11, I think.
11, yeah, 11 herbs and spices.
Yeah, you remember the KFC 11 they did here in Louisville? I know that, Matt, you won't because you weren't here, but they did a KFC 11 and they tried it out, and it was down by Bardstown
in the
Road,
Highlands.
Baxter. Yeah, it was in the Highlands. I never ate there. Did either of you ever try that?
And what was the deal with it? It was more of, I don't want to say, was it more upscale or something?
I don't recall.
I don't know, Mitch. Try that again. You're breaking up.
I know conceptually. I don't remember what it was. I do know it was different. They were trying something a little different in that kind of like urban hipster setting. But I can't remember exactly what the concept was either.
Yeah, it was kind of an experimental model. I think they tried some new recipes and things there, or something there was something unique with it in that way. I think, which was fitting. If you're not from Louisville, the Highlands is kind of the more eclectic, artsy kind of district of Louisville. So it was a good place if you're going to try something like that. It was probably a good location.
Yeah, it wasn't up for very long. I never tried it, but yeah. I mean, props to KFC though. I mean, at least and I didn't do a whole lot of research in all the brands out there that tried extensions and what the extensions were, but I can't say by far the KFC's is the one that kind of stuck out to me the most because of living in Louisville and also the fact that, I mean, they're just so weird. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I could imagine sitting in a think tank on this one in the marketing department going, hey, what if we did fire logs that smelled like chicken and gravy? I just, somebody
I'm
had
getting
to say
hungry.
That. I am too. I may order KFC later, which, probably
See, the marketing works.
That's right.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's kind of like when you go on YouTube, if you watch food shows and things like that, Man versus Food, I've always liked that show. I don't see how that guy's alive, but anyway.
He doesn't do it anymore.
Well, that's true. They've got the older seasons and episodes now on YouTube you can watch on Travel Channel. On a couple of them anyway, little snippets here and there. I watch stuff like that though, and I admit I kind of get hungry. I kind of look at it and I go, I kind of want that, and then I look at the time and it's like it's 9 o'clock at night. I just
I'm
need
always
not.
like, people are like, advertising doesn't work on me. And I'm like, have you ever seen a Taco Bell commercial? Because you're going to get Taco Bell afterwards at some point in the near future. It may not be at that exact moment, but within 24 to 48 hours, you're going to go get Taco Bell.
Well, it's like if somebody brings up White Castle,
or, Domino's, pizza places. You're going to order pizza. It's like, reward yourself.
Yeah. We could start a whole other podcast on impulse buys and what prompts an impulse buy.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's we've been developing, just for our listeners, we've been developing like shows that new series and everything. And so it takes a while to kind of come up with some of these things, but given the fact that things have been a little slow with the election going on, because that's not been distracting. And then the pandemic, of course, we've been kind of figuring up like, okay, what are we going to talk about over the next, 6 months or whatever is it series, and kind of go through that, building up a guest list and things like that. And that could be another thing that we talk about. I mean, we'd hope that we can get some feedback from you guys out there listening, and let us know what you'd like to hear our take on as nerds that love marketing and advertising. But
I'd like to get the audience to pipe in and give us some other examples of brand extensions that were interesting or different or unique.
Yeah, and I think that's something we'll do as we promote this episode throughout the week next week. That that's up to John to kind of go out there and kind of say like, hey, what have you heard of? Maybe make some quizzes. I don't know, just kind of like pepper the internet with it for a bit, see what happens. Because it is interesting. Because the most interesting one, to segue here, you see how I did that?
Have you hosted a podcast before?
I have. Not great at it, but I can either do it or Matt can do it because Matt's got the voice. But KFC Crocs, guys, who wants feet and chicken?
What was the thinking?
Or who wants chicken feet?
No, not chicken feet, because people do like chicken feet. Who wants human feet and chicken put together in a Croc? First of all, Crocs, I know they're very comfortable, but they're nasty.
They're awfully.
Don't put food with it.
They're honestly hilarious.
I don't know. I think I didn't see the campaign or the effectiveness of it. But anytime you're mixing feet and food, I just, it's risky territory.
I mean, on the Crocs website, it says that they're sold out. So I don't know if that's more of their marketing or if they actually are sold out of them.
Wow. Well, I mean, it's a novelty item, and there's people that just gobble that stuff up.
The funniest thing about it is that it comes with 2 what they call gibbets, which are, how people put those charms in the holes on the top of their Crocs?
Yeah.
Well, they're like
say I do not.
chicken legs. Like fried chicken legs that you put on top of your Crocs.
Wow.
But again,
okay.
It's not about selling Crocs, and it's not even about, in this particular scenario, it's not about driving some kind of direct response to go buy a bucket of chicken. It's just to get press and PR and get people thinking about KFC again, and to have them talk about these wacky ideas on a podcast. So, is it effective? It keeps like
you,
it.
Right. It keeps you top of mind. It keeps you in conversation.
I mean, for how many times can you say we have really good fried chicken? It has certain herbs and spices that we'll never tell you about. You've got to come up with something, off the wall, something that's PR worthy.
It's really, it's like I said, I think it's a luxury. I think it's a luxury that that a lot of brands are probably envious of having that kind of latitude. Needless to say, I guess you have to be careful. You can overextend, but to be able to have that kind of flexibility to just really be creative for creative sake.
Yeah, it's decades of brand equity and conscious efforts to build up the brand identity.
Yeah, I get it. When does it like go too far? When does it go from being a brand extension to just a, shock and awe campaign, just to kind of shock people? I mean, seriously.
Like Crocs
Is there a
kind of
line?
crossed that line.
To a lot of people, it probably does. That is one that maybe if you surveyed their customer base or the general population, you might find, again, that people don't want to think about feet or shoes when they're eating. That's not a far reach. They may have pushed it too far there.
Maybe they're just trying to say that KFC has soul.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
I went there.
Okay. All right.
Somebody had to.
All right. This dad joke sponsored by
Not
Mitch
NerdBrand.
Gregory. Yeah.
The preceding statement was not endorsed by NerdBrand.
We don't always do that. I mean, we got a couple of dads on the show with you two guys, but come on, man.
I do what I can.
Yeah, you're welcome, listeners. I know everybody's like, all right, done. What's Joe Rogan got to say?
It is free.
I think to your question, Jason, though, about pushing it too far from a real practical standpoint of brand equity, brand integrity, like I think we had, I don't know if you guys already talked about it, but Harley Davidson, I think came out with a lipstick, wasn't it? Something for women, and again, that may be pushing it too far given the nature of the brand and what they stand for. On the flip side, maybe that's a demographic that they're trying to appeal to more strongly. But I think in those scenarios where you really do break the mold of the brand, you risk losing your brand story, your equity.
And that is a really good clip that we will use for this podcast. The risk. All right. So we are now going to switch over to a brand that everybody knows, even though we kind of talked about Apple a little bit at first because we kind of just stumbled our way through that one because it just couldn't be avoided to bring up. But Google's done this too. And John, you kind of brought this one up and pointed it out where they went from search to email for the win. Not so much on social media.
Yeah, Google's a weird one. I don't think there's some kind of natural connection between search results and email. But we've definitely seen their attempts and efforts to move into social media, move into some other types of services, and it just completely flops. They've been through 5-6 rounds of trying to start up a social platform, and they're kind of in some capacity in the midst of that right now with Google My Business. And it's just again, I think Google My Business is more valuable than some of the other attempts, but it's not competing with the Facebooks and the LinkedIns of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think Google can. Google is obviously we know in the news with the lawsuit that's against them for monopoly. They've also been called before the Senate over, content, things like that as well, and search. And the big one for me is the monopoly one about search. I mean, watching the story. Hello, cat. I hear you, Mitch. You got to go feed your cat.
Sorry about that.
Heard KFC.
Yeah. It heard KFC, and it's like, I want chicken. Chicken. All right. So Google is like, obviously they've been in the news, like I said, and I remember when they started out, they were really like, search was not something you made money on. What you made money on was the ads. And so these guys were kind of consulted by somebody else and said, hey, you can sell ads on your platform and you'll make a bunch of money. The other thing they did was data. They were gathering data on how people search, what they searched for, what they clicked on as well. So they kind of there was a lot more going on. Not to try to get too Edward Snowden into this thing, but it's kind of like I think that Google, and as any company, when they are good at what they do, that's what they should stick with because that's their strength. And I've said that before. I couldn't see Google developing champagne or tequila. I could be wrong. But could you imagine a bottle of tequila from Google? What that would look like? Would they color it with dye in order to get the green, the blue, and the red? I don't know.
Yeah, somehow with Google, I don't see tequila. I see something more psychedelic.
Branded acid. Where are you going with
that? Some other. Yeah. Anyways, getting away from that. Other brands that have done extensions. We talked about Apple. There's Callaway from golf clubs into footwear. Dyson, the proper amount of suction into desk lamps.
They went into lighting
really,
overall, which was kind of strange.
Yeah. Do you think Starbucks is going to make some changes? Right now, I know that because of the pandemic, you've got drive-throughs becoming a thing. It was really funny because you had the comfort of dine-in, right? Before the COVID-19 broke out, but then afterward, like now you're seeing restaurants that, like McDonald's is having a boom because they've just always been fast food drive-in type, drive-through, type business model. Now you've got smaller restaurants that are having to pivot over to build up drive-throughs in order to serve customers. I think that like Starbucks had coffee-based beverages, and then they went to energy drinks. Do you think that we'll see Starbucks start to diversify more into food, more into better like quality food? Sorry if you love Starbucks out there. Don't send your hate mail to me. I don't want it. But I don't go to Starbucks and go, I like a bagel.
Right.
So,
I think depending on how long this goes on and how, permanent the culture changes are, I don't think they have much of a choice. But, I think it's interesting if you paid attention to Wendy's and even McDonald's and, even I think KFC. I haven't dined in at KFC much over the years, but I think if you paid attention, you saw Wendy's especially. They saw everybody hanging out at Starbucks, and like they started putting fireplaces in their dine-in restaurants. And McDonald's, it used to be I don't know if it's an urban myth or what, but they used to have, the wavy benches, and they said that was to get people in and out faster. They didn't want people to stick around. But then they played certain music that got people in and out the door faster. And I think you saw over the years as they started to see people hanging out at Starbucks all day and running their businesses out of it, they started to try to model their dining experiences after what Starbucks was achieving. And now that's flipped 180. So I think it's funny that they went down that road and invested and to try to compete with the Starbucks of the world. And now it's back to the old days of all drive-in or drive-through.
Yeah, I know we're kind of switching gears here on brand extensions, but I'm kind of tacking on the last few minutes of the show. But I kind of going down the style. It's hard not to talk about in any conversation what has happened over the last, 11 months or nearly 11, not nine, but not about 9 months since April.
What year is it?
I know, it's like, what year is it? And then I saw recently, a friend of mine post on social media, a bunch of people standing around a corner, and then the door they're all looking at says 2021, and they got this big long 20-yard stick kind of pushing it open because they're afraid what's going to come out. And it's just sort of that's really kind of how I feel about 2021. I've been pretty good at like discerning like what's coming. I can look at it and go, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is not as bad as maybe people think. There is a lot of positive stuff that's starting to show up. It's like the light at the end of the tunnel is appearing. We are in a second wave. We have been for actually a bit. If you look at the CDC site that, most places don't want you looking at. But go to their website and you can kind of see like cases and everything from April to now. And it's kind of already it's been in the second wave. And so I kind of look at like everything and I'm like, okay, well, we know as the weather gets colder, we're getting into flu season now. It's kind of good that we're kind of seeing like vaccine show up. And, I think the next battle is going to be like distribution of it. How do you get it? People taking it, actually thinking that it's safe to take it, I'm sure is going to come up. Business wise, I'm not dreary about business to certain extents. Most business owners, I'm sure, out there would argue with me and be like, "Are you crazy? It just looks bleak." I don't want to spend time thinking about the negative in business, because owning a business and running one provides enough anxiety that I don't need to think about the world ending in April of 2021. But at the end of the day, I'm kind of looking at it and I'm going, well, things could be worse.
Good way to look at it.
Yeah,
is the glass half empty or half full?
Exactly. And that's my point. It's like, it's really up to you to decide what you think is good or bad coming up, or that you're dealing with in the moment, or even with your own brand. Because there's a lot of folks right now I know that are probably thinking about, like, all right, 2021's coming. We're probably going to have a good fourth quarter. I don't know, John. You brought this up, and we talked about this before, about how you feel that the fourth quarter is going to be the best for businesses. I mean, I kind of like for you to kind of chime in on. I know it's kind of on the spot. God. I'm sorry.
How could you?
What have you done?
I'm sorry.
I mean, I know. I could be completely wrong. I just looking at least in the e-commerce world, and that's kind of where my commentary was the other day. I mean, we're seeing huge expectations that there's going to be a significant gap between demand and the ability for carriers to fulfill the demand, meaning like UPS and FedEx. There's literally a term going around right now called Shipageddon, and that's what these facilities, these packaging companies, the UPSs and FedEx and the DHLs of the world, I mean, they're flat out saying, shop earlier. If you don't shop earlier, you're not getting your stuff, because there's like between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there's an 8 million package deficit between what the carriers can handle and what the consumer demand is expected to be, because so many more people are shopping online this year. So, I don't know if that's going to make up for, if there's going to be a net gain necessarily, but I think if you're in the right position as a business who can fulfill online in some capacity, I think you're gonna do pretty well this fourth quarter.
No, I mean, to me, it's an amazing testament of the marketplace's ability to adapt to circumstances, and to our ability, given our technological advantages, to be able to adapt and to thrive based on what people, the marketplace exists based on what people need. And people need the ability to buy and purchase things without necessarily having to go to a mall or go to a brick and mortar store. And the marketplace in this age has adapted to that amazingly. But you still have to get the message out, and you still have to communicate. And people are in their homes now more than ever, and they're exposed to media more than ever. And you have an opportunity now, without some of the barriers that you may have had under normal circumstances, to communicate your message to people. So, I mean, there's some advantageous aspects to what's happening right now that, may not happen again in our lifetime, and the ability to take advantage of those, of that playing field. I mean, it's just a really good time to think about a marketing strategy that takes advantage of it.
Well, yeah. In one light, in the other, this is a really bad time to think about it, because you have about a week. By the time you hear this, you'll have about 4 days. So, yeah. But to the point,
we did try.
It's a once in a. I mean, I don't know. It
once in a generation,
once in a lifetime situation. And like you're saying, there's a lot of people placing their eyeballs in areas that they wouldn't have had we not been in this scenario. But
and it may, this is going to go past the holidays. I mean, at least into the first quarter. So, maybe you've got more than 4 days. You have a whole year coming up.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder how people's behavioral patterns will have adapted for the long term, given what they're now used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like buying groceries online. I mean, I would have never really considered that a possibility, or something that I would even consider an option or worthwhile. But now, you got a lot of people, that industry as a whole, and food prep and meal kit types of businesses that were kind of struggling beforehand are now, they're seeing a big boom. So there's huge shifts that are happening for sure that open doors for certain businesses that were struggling, or you see like the Instacarts of the world that are starting to form a monopoly in the grocery delivery business that they were kind of just puttering along up until COVID.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is going to definitely, like right now, I know Uber's going through, in California, they had another prop thing come up about Uber drivers, whether or not they were going to be considered employees or private, like, contractors, freelancers. And majority of it, I think, swung over to them becoming enlisted as freelancers, which is good, I guess, for Uber. I don't really know. It's not my business or expertise, but,
It's
I
better.
can see
It's
that.
definitely better for their business model.
Yeah, it is. I can see this, though, coming up for delivery drivers for, everything from Cafaco Huts, which is a KFC, Taco Hut, and Pizza Hut.
Do what?
Yeah, that's a thing.
What
man.
did you call me?
It's a Cafaco Hut. It's a KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut all in one. You remember those?
Oh yeah, we've seen those. Yeah, and Long John Silver's.
How do you work
Oh
that?
yeah, I don't know how to say. I don't know. Yeah. Cafaco Hut Silver.
Yep, there's
away.
Cafaco.
You guys got to be careful. You might get kicked off iTunes if you keep this up.
No, that's not what we said.
There is a big push in what you were saying, Jason, for the gig economy, to unionize and to do a lot of the things that I think you were just kind of implying, to push for similar benefits and rights of employees versus just, kind of having this race to the bottom of who can gig work themselves the best, to the benefit of big corporations.
Yeah, because when you get into a gig economy, I mean, you don't have people that are business savvy, so they're just going to lower the price on what it takes for them to do something per hour, and then nobody else that knows they're valued more for what they do can really compete. And so it does create a giant chasm between, the types of clients you want and the ones you want and the jobs you can do, what can pay your bills and all. It just creates a mess. I believe if there was just a restructuring, frankly, with how businesses are what our responsibility is, going back to that golden era of just being a W-2 employee instead of having, a bunch of contractors working for you. I mean, honestly, it kind of is easier to kind of handle it that way. We talked about how folks become more loyal to the persons in the organization they're working for if they're actually, an employee. And, in our business, we do that. We strive for that. We strive, like, you may come on as a contractor, but we're going to try to get you in as full-time W-2. It's just right now, I think the pandemic has really caused for us an experience that many businesses have experienced where growth is stifled. It's been
delayed.
Just stopped. Yeah, it's delayed. But yeah, I would love to see, I'm just kind of that way. I would love to see the gig economy go away because I have worked in it for years. And it's horrible.
Well, it's not for everybody, obviously. I mean, there's some people. That's what they. I mean, that's what they want. It gives you the benefit of being your own boss without the overhead of actually having the overhead of actually constructing your own business.
Yeah,
but it's kind of gotten to the point where you have to. Yeah, you have to, like John just said, in the small picture. I mean, it's got to the point now because of what the pandemic has done. I mean, contract workers may be responsible. They may have to go get workers' comp for themselves. And they don't know what that is. They may not understand that that's kind of like insurance. And you got to go out and get business insurance, which, you have to do as a 1099. It would be advisable, just like you would have health insurance or, homeowners insurance. You have to go out and get insurance to protect yourself and your assets if something goes wrong, depending on what gig you're doing or what it is you're in. And that's kind of like getting closer and closer and closer to becoming a business. At that point, you might as well get an EIN and just operate on that, or do like we do and get a real business going. But I think that that's to me, that's where the gig economy, I look at it and go, I know it competes in a global market, and I see the benefits of it, and I understand there's people that like to do that, and that's what they want to do. But financially, I remember it's just a lot to keep up with, just from an administration point, where how do you have time to go out and get new leads and prospects to convert to become the next project that will feed you for the next 6 months or whatever? It's just a cycle
like said,
that doesn't end.
You mentioned it's a global market. Well, if you're a developer, especially, there's a lot of talented developers overseas who can do the work. You know, it may not be quite as fluid to work with if you're in, you know, the U.S. and you're trying to work with somebody in a different country, but it's doable. And the pricing, you know, for a U.S. developer to compete with a developer from, you know, India or something like that, the U.S. developer either has to show extreme value or significantly lower their price, but the cost of living doesn't change based on that. So, you know, that's kind of the dilemma that, you know, it opens a ton of opportunities. I'm not really in the camp that I would like to see it go away, but I think there's got to be, like I was saying, there's some movements to unionize gig workers and certain segments of gig workers to push for a little additional benefits and stability.
Yeah, I just think that it requires, like, our government doing some sort of, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to see in 4 years that will probably address that. I'm not a fan of unions, but I understand the need for them to protect the people that, you know, are working, because there's a lot of folks that just get taken advantage of, and you can get taken advantage of really grossly as a gig worker, if you don't know or you're not savvy enough to cover your butt. But anyways, to kind of wrap up the show,
brand extension.
One last brand extension that I just find this one interesting. We don't have to talk a lot about it, but Ferrari,
the theme park.
Ferrari, the theme park.
Wow,
and so,
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Was it in Italy?
Yeah, you have. Yeah, no, well, it's Ferrari Land, and it's in Spain. And then you have Ferrari World, Abu Dhabi. So
of course,
I'm sure. So I'm like, at what point did somebody go, you know what? Disneyland works. Disney World works. We'll just put Ferrari in there. And then the roller coasters are like little.
I wonder if they're fast.
Cars. Ah, I see what you did there.
I kind of want to go now.
I don't know if you can. It depends on if it's open.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
But yeah, I mean, but when I joke about Disney, I mean, they literally did take that out of the playbook from Disney. They don't, I don't think they apologize for it at all. You know, but this is like in 2010. So, I mean, I don't know if they're still around or not, but it was opened on, and I'm going to butcher the crap out of this, but it was opened on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates, with the claiming to have the fastest roller coaster in the world. So yes, Matt, it was.
I really want to go now.
And called Formula Rossa. In 2017, Ferrari Land was opened as an extension of the Spanish entertainment resort Port Aventura World. You know what? I just sound
just stay in Owensboro.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
Have y'all ever seen like Inglourious Bastards? And it's like the best scene that Brad Pitt has in there as the leader of them. They go in there and there's the Nazi, and he's supposed to be posing as an Italian, something or other. And he's like, yeah, his famous, like, you know what I'm talking about? Buongiorno. I mean,
this is why we need Matt. We're really showing our lack of culture here.
Yeah. I'm cultured. What did you do? I went to E-Town.
What's NerdBrand's next brand extension? What are we going to do?
Well, we've done.
Well, what's our first brand extension?
Yeah, we've not done anything.
Yes, we have. Sure, we have the sunglasses.
No, that's merch.
It's a brand, but it's still a brand extension.
I don't think anybody's going to be buying sunglasses from us. I mean, the sunglasses are kind of like, well, you know, y'all see them. We'll post on them later, but I don't qualify that as a brand extension.
We'll sell them to you if you want to buy them.
I mean, I'm not in the money to make money on sunglasses.
I'll sell them to you,
bitch. It qualifies.
Yeah, me first.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, something in the way of we would probably do something in the way of tech and expanding into some kind of new service line. I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's kind of to be determined upon how things go.
I would guess a brand extension would be, let's say, and I'm just pulling an example out of the air. If we decided to offer in-house video services or something like that, that would be a brand extension, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. There's always that delineation between product line extension, and where's that line drawn? I don't know. I'm not going back to my sophomore year of college to figure it out.
But that's probably something. That's probably something in the course of this series we need to kind of, maybe we can probe that a little bit, is the delineation between a brand extension and a service line. Mm-hmm. Where do they converge? Where do they differ? I think that would make for some interesting discussion.
Yeah, we probably can work that into the next episode, because the next episode is about brand dilution. I'm going to butcher this word too because it's Friday, and I need to eat. But anyway.
We're back to KFC now.
Yeah, brand dilution is it's trying to push too far on an extension, is what this is. And so we're going to talk through this. We're going to talk about some brands that kind of took their brand extensions, went a little too far, diluted their original brand, and oopsies, we got to maybe not do Crocs and feet and chicken. Maybe that's not a good idea. And so that's the idea. So that's the next episode of the podcast in the series. Where we talk about that. When do you go too far? And so, we'll have some examples of that, talk about that. It'll be interesting. As far as NerdBrand, any brand extensions that we do, I don't know. We'll make candy. We'll do NerdBrand candy. We'll make some candy. And it's here's some chocolate, but it's just a Snickers bar wrapped in a. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's NerdBrand.
How about a comic book?
Ooh.
I actually did think about that. Yeah, I did think about a comic book, but can any of y'all draw?
Have you met?
I used to. I used to be able to.
Have you met Alex?
What'd you say? Oh yeah, our secret weapon. We can say that name, but we can't really say much else about her. But yes, we do have a person that's pretty gifted in that realm. I know Laura can do some illustration too. But yeah. Who knows? The NerdBrand, the comic. What does it cost to get a comic?
Well, you can go on Kickstarter.
$2,000-$3,000.
You can go on Kickstarter. There's a bunch of people trying to make comic books and stuff like that on there, and people just give them money to do it.
Yeah, a lot of the independent publishers have gone that route now. People trying to want to get past having to deal with the big labels like Marvel and DC. They're crowdfunding all their stuff.
So then we just got to come up with a story. We got to come up with a character, a story, and a villain. It's kind of like the Knight Rider stuff I told y'all about. Every episode, there was a girl that had a kid, and the car jumped over something, was on two wheels at something.
The villain can be a bad client, and we educate people on how to be good clients. Sorry.
I mean, it's a thing in the industry that we're in. I mean, there's a blog out there. Yeah, everybody knows it. There's a reason Clients from Hell is so popular as a blog, because these are true stories. These things happen, and it's kind of amazing. I mean, it's a kind of the reason why I'm the gig economy. Well, that's why you kind of run into that.
Can you make the logo bigger?
Yeah.
Can you make my website round?
I think the one thing that happened to me years ago was I had a guy reach out to me, and he said the website was crooked. That actually is a true story. And, God love him. I mean, he didn't know any better. And it just kind of, how you have on your monitor, you have a setting on your monitor to kind of
rotate,
basically straighten it. Yeah, that's really what it was. And I was just like, God bless. I was like, no, the internet's not crooked. It's not that at all. We don't make crooked websites.
We should try that one time. I bet we'd get some attention. We're the agency that does crooked websites.
It'd be our Crocs.
That's the brand extension.
All right. We want to thank everybody for listening out there. We appreciate our listeners. We know it's kind of a rough time right now with the pandemic, and with with the election and getting through all of that. So, but we do thank you. If you want to be a sponsor, go to nerdbrandagency.com/sponsor. Hit us up. We'll mention you on the show. And if you just want to catch the next episode of the NerdBrand Podcast, go to nerdbrandagency.com/podcast. Find us on iTunes. Find us on Spotify. And you can even find some episodes on YouTube if you like. So appreciate y'all listening. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong.